Everybody can see that Georgia is a force that's going to be reckoned with. We are not going anywhere. That's something that Kirby Smart said. It's actually, so in the time that I've covered Georgia, that's maybe one of the most famous quotes from a coach in that quarter century. Everybody can see that Georgia is a force that's going to be reckoned with. We are not going anywhere. That was what Kirby said in the press conference after the loss to Alabama in 2017. And from that point forward, of course, they won, let's see, what, two national championships, two SEC championships. They won a Peach Bowl, an Orange Bowl, a couple Peach Bowls, a couple Orange Bowls, Sugar Bowl in that time. They had just come off winning the Rose Bowl. And, it always I was one of the few people in the room at the time. There was such chaos after that game. National championship games, big games, they're not like normal games at all. And so there's a lot of chaos after the games. And I remember that moment for sure. It was very quiet in the room. And the two players that were with Kirby, Nick and Sony, had gone first. And I think Kirby was talking after that. And here we are. It's about to be 8 seasons later, and I think it's important to revisit that moment and what was said, and kind of where we're at right now versus where we were then. And college football has changed. Nick is gone. I think the biggest impediment to Georgia winning a national championship is gone. And the strange part is, it's not that strange actually. The strange part is that the first season he's gone, Georgia doesn't win it. That's not that strange. It's not. That's somewhat circumstantial. But they still lost to Alabama this season. Didn't stop that from happening. What is the future of Alabama? It doesn't look bright. It looks like dim to some, and I think that's something people thought would happen. I mean, I think the win over Georgia in Tuscaloosa masked up what people thought would happen, what the future would be. But then soon thereafter, Alabama, had its own problems, losing to Vanderbilt, and that was amazing. But I think looking forward, Georgia is going to have to adjust some, not tons, but some, and everybody has to adjust. I mean, that you would be coaching college football the same way in 2017 as you were in 2007, the sport had changed even a little bit from one point to the other then. I mean, in 07, you didn't have an expanded Southeastern Conference. In 07, you did not have a 14 playoff. Now in 25, you have a twice expanded Southeastern Conference. The SEC championship doesn't matter like it used to. And from about 2011 on, it didn't matter as much as it used to, but it still mattered a lot. You now have NIL. You now have the transfer portal. You have all these things that people are talking about. But at the end of the day, is what Kirby said at the time still true? Is what he's saying at the time, or is there a new Georgia that's out there that's ready to sort of take the reins? I mean, there's only, since Kirby made that statement, there's only been 2 schools that have won multiple national championships. That's it. Georgia and Alabama. That's it. Okay? Well, since that statement, technically there's only one, which is Georgia, because Alabama had won the national championship that night. They added one in 2020. So I'll just go through it real quick. 2017 was Alabama. 18 was Clemson. 19 LSU. Alabama in 20. 21 and 2, obviously the Dogs. 23, Michigan and Ohio State thereafter. You don't get to combine Ohio State and Michigan, and no matter how much sort of the Big Ten folks want to right now. Everybody can see that Georgia is a force that's going to be reckoned with. We are not going anywhere. We're entering the second decade of Kirby Smart. Does that statement still hold true? Okay, that's the question. Is it that they're not going to go anywhere? Is that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with? I certainly think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, but there's no question in my mind, and we have to call it like it is, that in 2024, the conclusion of that season, the just putrid performance against Notre Dame offensively, is not a good leading indicator for the future. It's not a good leading indicator. Does that mean that, what does that mean for the future? It just doesn't look good as it did coming in from 23. Now, the problem, not the problem, but me laying that out, how does one thing matter? Well, 23 didn't spawn into a good 24. 22 did. The closing of 20 did. The closing of 19 did not necessarily in 20, but there's so much change in 20. There's going to be change going into 25. I'm not sure there's as much change as people either think or want there to be. I mean, we don't yet know that there's been any coaching changes at Georgia. And there's not been any announced. There's not been any guys taking over. There's not been any that I'm aware of. Or if I've forgotten who it is, then it doesn't really matter, right? So there's that. But, you're going to return to 25 with the quarterback that you ended the season with starting. You're going to have a lot of the defense back, not all of it. They've always had to replace defensive players. The weakness at wide receiver has probably been addressed, to be honest with you. And so you still have the same offensive coordinator. You still have the same defensive coordinator. You still have the same head coach. You still have the same starting quarterback. Not for the whole year, but you get my point. There's much to be positive about. But, this wasn't like the close of 23 where they lost one game by 3 points and they probably should have been in the playoff. This wasn't like that. There's the optimism heading into 25. You're not getting that from Georgia folks. Now, they very well could be wrong. And when I say Georgia folks, I mainly mean fans. But, I'm looking at the odds over at BetMGM. And, Georgia's right there. Like Ohio State is the clear favorite. And after that, it's, Georgia, Texas, Oregon, the usual posse of teams. Let me just see real quick here. Yeah, Ohio State is at plus 450. They are, I would say, clearly the favorite. And then after that, you have Texas at plus 600, Oregon and Georgia both at plus 700. And then it kind of scales back a little bit from there. Penn State at plus 850, Notre Dame, then it kind of drops off once you get past that top 5. Notre Dame at plus 1,200, Alabama plus 1,600, Tennessee at plus 2,000, and Clemson also at plus 2,000. Make sure you're taking advantage of the offer that we have down below from BetMGM. Plus 2,000 for LSU. So really, and the curious thing here too is, like, Clemson is a narrow favorite over LSU in Death Valley up at Clemson. I think that's probably right. And then, so they play each other the first week. And then you also have Ohio State, Texas playing one another in the first week. So Georgia, in 25 will get to slowly get the ball rolling, whereas they came right out of the gate in 25. They came right out of the gate in 23. And right out of the gate in 20, let's see, so 21 against Clemson, 22 against Oregon, 23 was a slow roll, 24 right out of the gate against Clemson, 25 slow roll. It was supposed to be UCLA. I got canceled, obviously. I think that's probably the smart move, considering everything. But, Gunnar Stockton, Mike Bobo, these wide receivers, Kirby Smart and his defenses with Glenn Schumann, they will have the ability to play 2 games at home. One against Marshall, one a team I can't remember who it is. It's going to be a streaming game. So Georgia is going to have the capability to kind of maneuver things the way they want to at the start of the season. And then, boom, they go to Tennessee. So there will be I think for me, unless Georgia somehow comes out of the beginning of the season 2-2, which I do not envision, I would say it's more likely that they come out 4-0 than it is 2-2. But both are a possibility. If they unless they come out 2-2, in which case the season wouldn't even be over then. These seasons are so long, and the games are not terminal the way they used to be. The Ole Miss game would have ended Georgia's season in the past, vast majority of the time. This time it was like, oh well, they lost. They didn't play well. They lost on a rainy day, and against an Ole Miss team that was pretty good, and they turned it over and this stuff. But everybody can see Georgia is a force that's going to be reckoned with. We're not going anywhere. Does that still hold moving forward? That's my question. I mean, like, for instance, who's coming out of this 20? Who's coming out of 24 thinking, oh well, we've got momentum? Clemson. They think they've got momentum, and I mean, I think they have. I think that they have a jump off point. They got solidly beaten by Texas, but they didn't get rolled by Texas. They got beaten by Carolina at the end. They think they've figured a few things out. They got the same quarterback back. That wouldn't breed confidence for me. But, does Georgia Tech think they're better? I mean, Alabama and Tennessee are both swimming upstream. Ole Miss, same thing. Gators, they feel like they got momentum. Arch Manning's playing at Texas. I mean, does Georgia have momentum? No, it doesn't feel like it. No, it does not feel like it. But when I can acknowledge that and still live in a universe where I can say, does that really matter? Does it? Everybody can see that Georgia is a force that's going to be reckoned with. We are not going anywhere. That was Kirby Smart. Was he right then? Yes. Is he right now? You tell me in the comments down below. Thanks for watching.